I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the meeting of the Board of Selectmen of Monday, May 23rd. In accordance with the open meeting law, this meeting is being recorded, and is anyone in the audience also recording the meeting? Seeing none, we'd like to continue this evening in accordance with the town charter. There will be a reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. So given that, I will be presiding over it until we nominate and vote for a chair. So given that, I'd like to open the nominations for chairman. Do I have a second to open the nominations?
Second.
All in favor for opening the nominations?
Aye.
Do I have any candidate nominations from any of the board members? If so, can you please raise your hand? Mrs. Goodrich.
I'll nominate Ken Holstrom, Selectman Holstrom, for chair.
Do I have a second for that nomination?
Second.
Do I have any additional nominations for chair? None being heard. I'd like to close the nominations.
I'll make a motion to close the nominations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we're going to have a vote by roll call for the candidates. So I'm going to start with our newest member. Welcome, Mr. Berthium. We have a nomination on the floor for Mr. Holstrom for chair.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
No.
Mrs. Brotherton?
Yes.
Mrs. Goodrich?
Yes.
And Mr. Holstrom?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And I will turn over the gavel to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have nominations to open for vice chair. Is there any nominations? Mrs. Brotherton?
Yes, Mr. Holstrom, I'd like to nominate Mrs. Goodrich for vice chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Okay, motion been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Being none, I'll ask for a vote.
Motion to close nominations.
Yeah, can I have a motion to close the nominations?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded for closing the nominations. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And now to vote Mrs. Goodrich as vice chair. Mr. Berthium? Yes. Mr. Carpenter?
No.
Mrs. Brotherton?
Yes.
Mrs. Goodrich?
Yes.
And Mr. Holstrom, the chair, says yes. Okay. We have a executive session in front of us here for 6 o'clock. We're just after now because of our organization. I'd like to have a motion on that.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mrs. Goodrich.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to deliberate upon matters which, if done in an open meeting, could have a detrimental effect on the position of the town regarding strategy with respect to litigation and collective bargaining, to come out of executive session and reconvene in open session.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Is all in favor?
Aye.
This by roll call, Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Brotherton?
Yes.
Mrs. Goodrich?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And we are to return to open meeting for the balance of our meeting. Because we've come back from executive session, we have a group in the hall tonight. We're going to ask, this meeting is being recorded. Is there anybody else in the meeting recording this meeting? If not, can we all stand and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First thing on our agenda tonight, we have some public comments, and we're going to start off first with Mr. Larry Corbin on the Memorial Day Parade. Would you be a little more comfortable coming up here? Whatever you're comfortable with.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Good evening, Larry Corbin, Town Veteran Services. I'm here to talk about the Memorial Day Parade. There seems to be some questions about the parade. It's Monday, the 30th of May, and it steps off at 10 a.m. from Dooley's Cleaners. The Board of Selectmen have been invited to go walk the parade route from Dooley's to the Hillside Cemetery. If you would like, you are more than welcome to show up and walk with the troops. Unfortunately, we're not having the Shriners this year. That's a matter to be discussed in executive session with me.
Can you just repeat that,
You're not
Mr.
having
Corbin?
what?
Shriners are not going to be here this year.
Okay.
It's the first time in like 50 years.
Okay.
The pamphlets or the flyers should be here tomorrow at the clerk's office up on the shelf there. Should be there tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Corbin.
Thank you.
Okay.
Before Mr. Corbin goes,
Yes.
are you still having the ceremony at the cemetery?
After the parade?
Yes.
Yes,
We
it's
just don't want people to leave, just believe it.
correct. After the parade, it's the usual ceremonies that we perform, and they're decorating the graves. I believe they already did that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and before we continue, Mrs. Brotherton was with us tonight for reorganization of the board. She had another commitment tonight, so she had to leave a little early. And before we get back to our public comments, I have a little something I want to say just before we get started here. It's the entire town has been devastated by the loss of our finest officer, police officer Ron Tarantino, who lost his life while protecting the community and the people of Auburn. Our thoughts and prayers go to Officer Tarantino's family and the men and women of the Auburn Police Department who put their lives on the line each and every day to protect our community. I would also like to reach out and also send our condolences to the town of Leicester and the men and women of the Leicester Police Department for this tragic loss. And in addition, I would also like to send condolences to the family, friends, and to our Auburn firefighters, present and retired, on the passing of retired Chief Roger Belluma, who gave of his time and energy and experience to make this a better community. Ms. Jacobson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know the fire chief, and we're honored to have the state fire marshal here this evening, and I know they'll be speaking soon. So I just want to focus my comments on a couple things. First of all, for anyone watching, the town of Auburn, the town administration family, elected officials, the entire community have suffered an extraordinary loss in this community over the last 48 hours that is just, you can't put words to it. To lose two dedicated public servants that we've lost is an incredible suffering for everybody involved. And I know we will be talking shortly about retired Chief Roger Belluma, so I just want to give my condolences to his family and to say, Ed Kazanovich, myself, from town administration perspective, can't find a finer, better person. He was wonderful. He was a great colleague, a great employee, a great emergency management director, a wonderful chief, and most importantly, a really good friend. And within the last few hours, I already miss his sense of humor, his laughing, and the phone calls that he would make to me just to check in, and sorely miss him. On a different note, I did speak to the police chief as well, and I just want to read something. We have, obviously we've posted on our websites, on Auburn Community Television, and I just want to make a couple comments. How do we even start, given what we've all been through? But I just want to say the entire town of Auburn, the town administration family, we are grieving the loss of Officer Ron Tarantino Jr. Officer Tarantino was very well liked and respected by anybody who had the pleasure and the opportunity to work with him and to meet him in the community. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends, as well as with every member of the Auburn Police Department during this horrific tragedy. We also acknowledge and thank the scores of law enforcement officials and agencies who provided assistance to the town on many levels during and after this tragic event, including the District Attorney's Office, the Massachusetts State Police, the FBI, SEMLAC, and many other law enforcement personnel. We're also grateful to those many municipalities across the Commonwealth who've reached out to us to offer their support. They have and will continue to provide support as we need it, as we grieve the loss of our town family, and as we prepare to support Officer Tarantino's family. We'll keep Officer Tarantino and his family in our thoughts and prayers over the coming days, weeks, and months, as we know that grief will have no end. We will also pause to recognize and thank our public safety personnel, and I'm thrilled you're all here, from both the police department and the fire rescue department, for your dedication and your commitment to the town of Auburn. And just want to remind everybody and ask everyone to please take a moment to thank our public safety personnel. You put your lives on risk every day for us and for this community, and that can never be forgotten. Auburn is a very special and close community. And as a town, as a community, together we will find the strength to support Officer Tarantino's family, to support our police department family, and to support each other. Thank you, and rest in peace.
Thank you. Chief Coleman, would you come forward? And the Fire Marshal, would you care to join us up here at the table, please? Good evening, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce Peter Ostrowski. He's our State Fire Marshal. And when I conclude my statements, the Marshal has some words relative to Chief Bellhumer as well. This past Sunday, as the manager had mentioned, has really been a horrible time for the town of Auburn, and specifically for the fire department. We've suffered a tremendous loss with the loss of Chief Bellhumer. For all who know him, you knew his passion and his dedication that he had not only for this community, but for the fire department. And it is largely because of him and his leadership that our organization is where we are today. And he can be credited for that. Chief Bellhumer began his career in the Auburn Fire Department in 1966. And he was appointed the town's first full-time firefighter on April 17th, 1978. He was, again, the only full-time person at that time, and he was hired as the fire inspector. And what makes that historic in many ways is that there are many communities in the Commonwealth, especially here in central Massachusetts, that did not have a full-time fire inspector. Auburn was the first in this area. And that's historic in the sense that it shows the importance that this community had on fire prevention and battling the fire problem very early on. And we were leaders in that area. Just before Chief Bellhumer's passing, about a week before Chief Bellhumer's passing, I had the opportunity to bring home his personnel folder and to go through it and just to see what was in there. And I've shared with many people that it was a bit of a history lesson going through that folder, and it was about this thick. And I joked with him right before he passed. I said, I brought your folder home and I looked through it and I said, how much discipline did you have in there? You know? and he joked, he got a kick out of that. But it was a bit of a history lesson, because as I flipped through there, especially looking at the stuff in the late 70s, early 80s, what I started to notice was there was a lot of correspondence from other municipalities. There was letters in there from the Dudley Charlton School District. There were letters in there from the Oxford School District. The Brookfields, many of the Brookfields, letters from local fire chiefs of those communities from across District 7. And the theme of those letters were all the same, thanking Chief Belhumer, whether it was from a school superintendent or whether it was from a fire chief, thanking Chief Belhumer for being essentially a professional consultant on issues that they were having in their community relative to either fire problems or code-related issues. And Chief Belhumer in those early days went to many of those communities and not only taught the teachers and the educators and the fire chiefs of those communities what, the problem that they were dealing with, because they did not have those services. They did not have fire inspectors. They were not up on the codes like Chief Belhumer was. So he was a tremendous asset to this fire district in the early years, really building what today is a robust system of fire inspectors. And most communities in this district now have full-time fire inspectors. But we were the first. Chief Belhumer was appointed a lieutenant in 1982, and he was appointed the town's first full-time fire chief on January 1st, 1986. And again, somewhat of a historic event, because most of the communities around here did not have a full-time fire chief either. And in that time, he served as a leader and as a mentor to many of the call chiefs in the area that were not doing it on a full-time basis, that did not have the opportunity to sort of have the knowledge base that he had relative to the codes. And he became a mentor to a lot of people. Chief Belhumer retired in 2002, January 31st of 2002, concluding a 36-year career with this department, and this is the only fire department that he worked with in that 36-year career. And to call him a leader is a bit of an understatement, because when we track the list of firsts for this organization and what he brought to this community, the list is endless. Whether you are talking about, again, going back to full-time firefighter, first full-time firefighter, first full-time inspector, first full-time chief, first and still one of the only departments in this area to have its own training facility. Chief Belhumer brought that to this community. We had a residential live-in program from the WPI students where they lived in the West Auburn Fire Station, and he did that as an opportunity because he truly believed in fire prevention. He truly believed in the engineering aspect, that with engineering, we could conquer the fire problem and we could make buildings safer. And that was a passion project to him, where he wanted those fire engineering students to have an opportunity to get some real-life experience when they were in school. I could sit here for the next hour and go on with the firsts from Chief Belhumer. He was a true friend. He was a mentor of mine. I've known him the entire 26 years that I've been involved in the fire service. And at one time, serving as a fire inspector, Chief Belhumer was often on the other end of a phone call that I made for him to research a code issue or a code problem. One of the other things that I did not mention is that, and I'll close with this just relative to his work in fire prevention. Chief Belhumer served as the president of the Fire Prevention Association of Massachusetts in 1986, and he was one of the founding members of that organization. And in the late 70s, early 80s, Chief Belhumer sat on many of the technical committees that wrote today's fire code. And as you're all aware, last year, we had an opportunity to pass a new set of bylaws in the community. And as I was reviewing the bylaws, again, a little bit of a history lesson for myself, there were 11 or 12 bylaws that I pushed aside and did not go before town meeting to renew those bylaws. And the reason is that those 12 bylaws that we had in the late 70s, early 80s are now fire code. In many respects, national fire code. And when you look at the dates on our bylaw and when that fire code was implemented, we had the bylaw first. And again, that was a sign of Chief Belhumer's ingenuity and leadership, that sitting on these technical committees, as a panel of people debated what was the right thing to do to conquer the fire problem, Chief Belhumer came back to the community and figured out his own way to enact the legislation to make Auburn a safer community. And we had many laws that are now fire code 4, in some case 5 years prior to when they were actually on the books as a state law. And that was because of his vision. And a great example of that is sprinkler systems. Chief Belhumer, and I've told this story before, Chief Belhumer, when the woods and the lodge at Eddy Pond were built, had battle upon battle with the contractors of that project because they did not want to put a sprinkler system in that building. And he ultimately won. And several years later, in 2005, we had a fire that struck that building. It started on the outside of the building. It got up into the attic, into the eaves, and the sprinkler system is what essentially put that fire out. And there was not one loss of life or one injury in a building that housed 100 elderly residents. And it was because the sprinkler system put that fire out. And if it wasn't for the leadership of Chief Belhumer and him being a visionary, and if he had just rolled over and not fought that fight, we may be sitting here today with a different outcome of that incident. He will be missed by not only me, but he will be missed by the entire Auburn Fire Department. He was a true leader. He was a true friend. And I will miss him. At this point, I would like to ask State Fire Marshal Ostrowski to say a few words.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Town Manager Jacobson, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the time that you're giving me to be here to offer my condolences to the family and friends of Chief Belhumer, to the town of Auburn, to his extended family in the fire service. Roger was a great leader, and a great leader in a variety of ways, certainly in training better firefighters, protecting the community by preventing fires, and helping fire departments to be better prepared to provide responses to those incidents that do occur. I first met Roger as a young firefighter. Over the years, he's mentored so many young firefighters, whether in Auburn or, like me, in other communities. The special program that he set up with WPI, where students learn to be firefighters and assist the Auburn Fire Department, is not only a great teaching program, but it's an example of a smart chief figuring out how to do more with less. As the fire chief in Uxbridge, I benefited greatly from his work and so much advice, as the chief said, as he mentored those of us that were coming along, but certainly experienced great benefits from his work in the Fire District 7. 26 communities in southern Worcester County that Chief Belhumer worked with other stakeholders to really rejuvenate as a working organization in the areas of mutual aid. Mutual aid planning. There was a lot of great work done after Roger and others worked together to get District 7 as an organization back to where it should be. A lot of great work about mutual aid response that we all benefit from to this day. We're very fortunate to have that. District 7 provides training, mutual aid, and communications among the 26 departments in the region. And I pilfered from the chief's notes and noticed that it says Roger retired on December 31st, 2002. Well, I have to say that's a little bit of a misnomer, because as we all know about Roger Belhumer, he never retired. He might have stopped getting his regular check from the town of Auburn, but he worked feverishly and with great dedication, commitment, and immeasurable effort on behalf of the fire service, on behalf of the fire district, and always, always, always for the town of Auburn. I recognize that he was the first full-time firefighter in Auburn, hired as the fire inspector, and I can tell you that I know firsthand from my own experience as being a member of the Fire Prevention Association, Roger's hard work on the code committees, and a great deal of work that he committed to the Commonwealth, making our fire code better at every turn. Now, I'm sure this board knows well firsthand that Roger never really backed down when he was going to make a point. And I can tell you that there are many points in the fire code across that's in force in the Commonwealth that were thanks to his determination, his cajoling, his hard work to further that particular code provision because of his commitment. And as the chief mentioned, he found a way to implement it in Auburn first, but we were able to benefit from his wisdom, his knowledge, and his capabilities, and it's made the Commonwealth that much safer as well. As a founding member of the Fire Prevention Association, I can tell you as one of my first jobs in the fire service, a fire inspector, he welcomed me into the Fire Prevention Association of Massachusetts, and he was a strong supporter of that organization from its inception. And I know that, again, the Fire Prevention Association of Massachusetts is certainly indebted to Chief Bellhumer, and we are all indebted to the town of Auburn for the support that you gave him. We're all indebted to Roger's family for sharing him with us, and the benefits will go on for years and years to come. I know that. We've been very fortunate to have the support of Roger, and again, I thank you for the opportunity to extend my condolences, the condolences of the Department of Fire Services on the loss of these two dedicated public servants, and Auburn's hurting right now, but know that we support you as well in this very difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you. Have any board members got anything to say? Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Not up.
Yeah, if I could, just one more thing. I would like to recognize there's a couple of chiefs from the fire district that have come out as a show of support for Chief Bellhumer. I'd like to introduce Chief Matt Belcito from the Sutton Fire Department is here. Chief Kent Vincent from the Douglas Fire Department is here. And I would like to support, also acknowledge members not only of my command staff, but other members of the Fire Rescue Department that are here as well, as a show of support for Chief Bellhumer.
Welcome.
I just also want to mention the calling hours for Chief Bellhumer. The wake will be held on this Thursday, the 26th, from 4 to 8 at Britton Wallace here on Central Street. And the funeral will be on Friday, the 27th at 10 a.m. at North American Martyrs. Again, Mr. Chairman and the board, I thank you for your time.
Okay. Ms. Jacobson, if you would,
Thank you. Yeah, if I could add while you're here, there will be a community candlelight vigil that will be held in honor and in memory of both retired Fire Chief Bellhumer and Officer Tarantino. It's being put on by the residents and the members of the community, and we support them 100%. We're helping to get the word out for them. It will be held this Wednesday evening, May 25th at 7:30 p.m. at Lemansky Park. And again, it's an opportunity for members of the community to come together, help each other, give support, and recognize and acknowledge two tremendous public servants. Also, I would like to mention the arrangements as well that have been submitted for the public, and I was asked by the police chief to share these as well for Officer Ron Tarantino. The wake will be on Thursday evening, May 25th, from 2 in the afternoon to 7 p.m. in the evening at St. Joseph's Church in Charlton. The address is 10H Putnam Road Extension. So again, the wake is at St. Joseph's Church in Charlton from 2 to 7 p.m. on Thursday, May 25th. The funeral is on Friday, May 26th at 11 a.m., also at St. Joseph's Church. And lastly, I do want to just announce that there is a memorial fund that the police officers have established for Officer Ron Tarantino's family, and any donations can be made to the Officer Ron Tarantino Memorial Fund, care of Savers Bank on Auburn Street in Auburn. Thank you.
Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, you acknowledged the board just a minute ago, and it's not that the board doesn't have anything to say. It's just that there are no words to express the sadness that we feel for the loss of these two individuals.
Thank you. And in their memory, can we all stand for a moment of silence for these two great individuals for our community? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fire Marshal, for coming in tonight, and thank all of you for coming in here tonight. I appreciate all of you.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion to have a very brief recess so we can thank our public officials here?
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We're in recess.
Thank you, Mr. earlier.
Okay, we can get back. We've got a few things on the agenda for tonight, so we will get started. We have no presentation, no public hearings tonight, no communications. Board of Selectmen general items under 8A. We have a vote on the grant of easement, National Grid for Church Street and 104 Central Street. And we have a representative from National Grid. Would you like to come up and join us at the counter, please? Can you give us a little, introduce yourself and then give us a little bit of background of what your plans to do?
Good evening. My name is Matt Eustace with National Grid, here to ask to place a push brace on pole 4 on Church Street to better support our equipment.
Okay. I guess one of the questions we had, there's been work done over there before, and why was there never an easement put through there before, or requested before?
I'm not sure I could answer that, except for the pole in particular that we would be looking to support with the push brace.
Okay.
I don't think that was part of the work that you're referring to.
Okay.
So I don't know beyond that.
All right, that's fine. But just so that the board is aware, I asked about this earlier, and their easement is for Church Street and 104 Central Street, which is this building. And this whole property from 104 Central Street, the Town Hall property, right through to Mary D on Church Street is considered one property on the deed. So just so you know exactly what we're talking about as far as the easement. Has anybody got any other questions?
So, what, oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Mrs. Goodrich. No?
So just procedurally, I don't see that there was any abutter notification. Is that required for this? No? Okay, great,
Okay,
thanks.
Mr. Berthium.
So we're not talking about any lines, we're just supporting an existing pole?
Correct. There's a pole that is adjacent to the brick building, the school, and that's fed from a pole on the street. So those wires coming to feed this pole, those are going to put a lot of tension on the pole that's being installed on the street. So our push brace is just going to be there to prevent that pole from getting pulled into your property.
Okay, so I guess, just so I understand, the grant of the easement is just so that you could work on the land. It's and you're also going to install a pole at the same time, so that's...
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, as for technical aspects of the easement, I'd ask you to refer to one of the real estate reps for the company. But basically what we'd be looking for is to install a pole roughly at about a 45-degree angle, not so much, but to support that existing pole.
And this easement will allow you to do that work?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Carpenter.
Just a quick question. Did town council look at this? And did he give us any feedback?
Ms. Jacobson.
Through the chair, town council has not reviewed this. These are generally standard agreements. The agreement is the same agreement that we've always received from National Grid.
Okay. And I do recall we've had several easements with that type of a thing come through, and unless there's been a major question, there has not been any review by council. So I believe this is one of those things that we can review and just move along here, unless you have some questions.
And through the chair, if I may,
Yes,
also,
please.
and I believe it's in your packet, that DPW Director Bill Coyle, who's also a town engineer, did review this as well. And there was an email in the packet.
Yes, and that comes from Bill Coyle. He says to Ms. Kwiatkowski, he says, I have reviewed this and I am okay with the easement. And that comes from William Coyle, our DPW Director. Okay, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion. Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to grant an easement to National Grid for Church and 104 Central Street in accordance with the grant of an easement as attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. And yes, and we
Here it
have-
is to sign.
Yep, we
and
do
town
have-
clerk is here.
Okay. Yeah, we have to sign that tonight and have it notarized.
It's not all this.
Yes.
What's that? It's not all this.
Ms. Grimo, would you care to, oh, there you are. All right. Thank you.
Certainly not a great first.
Okay, so you'll do it for me?
I felt for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you want to...
Yeah, because Kevin said.
Okay.
Does that help?
So we want to move up 8D1.
I think you can do whatever it is.
Yep.
And then right after
This one.
that one.
Let's see. Okay. Has that all been taken care of? Great. Okay, we move on to now vote change of owner for flammable storage permit at 782 Washington Street. And we have a letter here from Deborah Grimo and change of the flammable storage permits. The new owner information for the gas registration 782 is listed below, and it's 17 Sibley Street LLC, 47 Harvard Street in Worcester, and it says change the name from Harvey Goldstein to 17 Sibley Street LLC on this gas registration for underground storage tank, so I may issue an updated registration form. And this is a name change, and this is for the new gas station on Route 20 at Sibley Street for
Yes, no.
BJ's, thank you. Is there any questions? Being none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the change of name.
Okay. Is there a second?
Thank you. Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, now we have a drain layers license for J.E. Amarello of Worcester. This is an application for a drain layers license. He's got the information here from it. It's not a short term. This is one that they've gone through, and Jeff Mitchell has sent a supporting document to have them come through, and we don't require drain layers to be in attendance. So is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the license provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. Okay, so now we go to committee reappointments. First, we'll take the Finance Committee, and we have Kevin Hussey and Ann Kavanaugh have stated they would like to be reappointed to the Finance Committee for terms expiring in June 30th, 2019. There are no additional applications for these seats, and there is still one vacancy on the committee for Precinct 2. What is the wish of the board?
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Do we need to take these separately, or can we approve the slate?
We can approve the slate. It's for a reappointment.
Mr. Chairman?
You mean all, like,
Yes, exactly.
he wants to take 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, well then before we do that, well, let's go through so that everybody knows what we're doing here. Okay, so the Finance Committee are 2. The Zoning Board of Appeals, we have members Lawrence Chickalo and Associate Member Karen Mary Blaze have stated they would like to be reappointed. And we'd have to make motions for Mr. Chickalo term expiring June 30th of 2019, and to appoint Karen Blaze as an associate to a term expiring June 30th, 2019. And there's no additional applications there. And there is a current vacancy for one additional associate member, and that's on the Zoning Board of Appeals. On the Board of Registrars, member Michael McNamara has stated that he would like to be reappointed. A motion would be needed to appoint him, and his term would expire June 30th, 2019. And on the School Buildings Committee, we have Joe Miller III and Robert E. Murray have stated they would like to be reappointed for terms expiring June 30th, 2019, and there are no additional applications. So we can take these as a slate, if you wish.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the Board of Selectmen reappointments to the Finance Committee, Board of Registrars, School Buildings Committee, Zoning Board of Appeals, and ZBA associate members to 3-year terms, all expiring on June 30th, 2019, with our gratitude for their continued service.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to echo Mr. Carpenter's comments. I think all of these members have done an excellent job, but I specifically want to recognize Chairman Hussey, who's in the audience, who I feel has done an excellent job leading the Finance Committee, adopting financial policies, and just having a real, true understanding and commitment to the direction the town's going.
Thank you. So the motion's been made. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. Okay, now can I get a motion to move up item, let's see, 9C, the Master Plan Committee update.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and second to move up 9C, the Master Plan Committee. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Mr. Benoit, would you care to join us up here at the bench?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good to have you here.
You mind if I may too, through the chair, there is a summary in your packet of a status report up through this evening, and Mr. Benoit is the town planner and is also the one that is therefore assigned as the liaison to the Master Plan Committee, and is currently also a member of the Master Plan Committee as a resident. We do have a couple of open seats, I believe, that we are advertising and seeking to get an additional member for a vacancy. But the summary is here before you. The committee, just a reminder, the committee just started meeting in January. It's a brand new committee. A lot of organization to be done, and basically getting ready to move forward on a multi-year process. Town master plans take anywhere between 2 and 4 years, depending on the resources available to that community. And as you know, we have applied for several different grants and sources to help us out. We have been successful on the state level of getting one grant that we're working on the paperwork, but we will be getting a $25,000 grant for economic development that is on the agenda later, as well as a housing grant that we will be putting in for that's a competitive grant. Both of those are components of the master plan. So I will turn to Mr. Benoit if you have any questions, but basically we just thought it would be good to provide the board with a summary of what's going on, maybe on a quarterly or semi-annual basis for the master plan committee. Keep you informed.
Great, thank you. Mr. Benoit.
Thank you. I can pretty much go along with what Ms. Jacobson has already said, but in the same regard, this initiative to produce a quarterly report came from the chairman, which is Greg Bowling, and this was an idea that he thought would be great to continue to update the board, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on the document as presented this evening.
I guess, is it going along as planned? Have you found any rough spots where you're trying to gain some hurdles that we may be able to help you with, or the grant funds that we might be able to apply for would help you through?
Through the review thus far, Mr. Chairman, we've pointed out that the more difficult sections are the ones that we're receiving grant funds for, that being the housing, the economic development, primarily those two. One of the other difficult and thankfully helpful sections is the open space section, which the Open Space Committee has been working to update their plan since the original 2007 plan being updated currently, and later updates still pending before the state to put the finishing touches on it, but that's a key component of the plan also, and I want to thank the members of the Open Space Committee for helping us along with that as well. So there's three of the most challenging components that we'll be able to receive from the help and assistance of other members of the community helping on other committees, as well as the two that are grant funded. We're anxious to see the consultants and meet the consultants that will be working with us on those so we can move forward on those projects. In addition to that, what we've been doing thus far is working out the sections that have been completed, going through each chapter and each of its recommendations and what we've completed, moving those off of the document, and then examining the ones that are still pending and working them into a priority order. Currently, we're on Chapter 2, which is land use, and the committee's been working on updating that as we go, and our next meeting should continue that.
Terrific. Thank you. Anybody else got anything else? Okay. And Ms. Jacobson, have you got anything else on this?
On this item, I do not. I just want to thank the members of the committee. This is a long, very long process, a lot of work, and I want to thank all the committees in town, boards and commissions that are participating in this. It's something that needs to be done. We are not on a timeline. I just want to remind the board, there is no specific timeline. Master plans traditionally should be updated every 10 years, so we're within the 10-year period. Unfortunately, in many communities, it's very expensive and time-consuming to do it, so many don't even update it for 15 or 20 years. So we are on track to do another 10-year update. I want to thank Matt for all the work that he's done on it, too.
Again, I'd like to echo her comments that it's an ongoing project, and it can be tedious at times, well, we wish you the best of luck going forward, and please come back to us, and if there's anything we can do to help you one way or another, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and thanks for being here tonight.
If I may add.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to send my condolences to the fire and police department based on the two losses our community's endured in the last 48 hours. It's been tough pill to swallow as a community member living here my entire life, and it's certainly something that we never forget, and we thank the fire and the police for all the work that they do continuously on an everyday basis, and to have these losses is certainly hard to comprehend, but moving on from that, a lighter note, I just want to congratulate Mr. Berthium on his election as a member of the Select Board, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go back to gift acceptances. We have one here tonight, and it's for the Worcester Animal Rescue League, and it's goods for animal care, which are collars, leashes, and harnesses for dogs, and amount of $35. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept with gratitude.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We have no proclamations tonight. Now we move on to the town manager items. And the first one we have tonight is for the police department. Request a vote on authorization to apply for and accept funds for 2 grants. One, a 2016 Commonwealth Security Trust Fund grant for $20,000 maximum, and Office of Community Oriented Policing Services for the U.S. Department of Justice. And so I'll turn that over to Ms. Jacobson.
Through the chair, they're rather self-explanatory. Just on the first one, the maximum award is $20,000. The police department is in the process of working on the grant application, wanted to get the authorization in prior to the deadline date. They're requesting approximately either $13,500 or $15,500, depending on when they get their final numbers. And this will be used for, part of it is used for paying the SWAT patrol, as well as some of the patrol and sergeants under this particular grant award, which we have received a similar one in the past. And they'll be also looking to funds to purchase an all-band radio that's capable of communicating with other towns in the area, and the state police as well. in some smaller amounts that go in with this grant. And again, this is being worked on by the police department. There is no match required. And I apologize, somebody from the police department was going to be coming here this evening, but given the circumstance, I certainly can handle any questions that you may have. But the grant is due between now and the time that you have your next meeting, which is why we're here this evening. And the second one, again, this is a grant that we have received before. This would help to fund the Citizen Police Academy and other community-oriented programs, and again, there is no match required for that.
With these grants, do we have to take these separately, or can we take these as...
You could take them together.
We can take these together, okay. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we authorize that the town administration apply for and accept funds for 2 grants, the 2016 Community Security Trust Fund Grant Program with a $20,000 maximum, and the second one through the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services through the U.S. Department of Justice. I don't have a total on that one.
No. There is none. I think that's already...
It has not been finalized yet.
Okay. So the motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, and now we move on to vote on authorization to apply for and accept grant funds for the State Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. $25,000 for development of economic development plan of the Community Compact Program. Ms. Jacobson.
Through the chair, I mentioned this at the last meeting, that we received notification from the state that we would be provided with a $25,000 grant. The source of the funding for that grant is the state's Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. We are awaiting final grant documents. I wanted to be able to have a board vote to allow me to accept them and expend them, even though we don't have the grant documents in hand from the state yet. If we get them in the next couple of weeks, which is my understanding, it would be again prior to your next board meeting, and didn't want to slow down the processing of the grant.
Any questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to authorize the application and acceptance of grant funds from the State Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development for $25,000 for the development of an economic development plan under the Community Compact Program.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's a vote. We've had the Master Plan Committee update, and now we recognize and thank Mastermans and their employees for volunteering to beautify and clean town parks and the Senior Center as part of Masterman's Founders Day Community Service Project in memory of Ben Masterman. Ms. Jacobson, could you give us a little background?
Absolutely, I'm happy to do this. We were contacted by Masterman's to ask us if there were any projects in town that their employees could help us with, that they're starting a new program to honor Ben Masterman's memory called the Masterman's Founders Day Community Service Projects. And I don't need to tell you how much Ben Masterman and his company has done for this community, and the employees are proud to carry on that tradition, and we're very anxious to work with us. They had a couple of day period in May, early May, where they worked with us, and we submitted maybe 10 different projects in town that we wanted to give them as options, and they came back and chose 3. And one was to help out at the Senior Center, organizing the shed and one of the closets, moving furniture, moving boxes, very labor-intensive work, and they did that at the Senior Center, which is tremendous. The seniors were thrilled. And we had 2 other projects. They helped plant and landscape up at the golf course. They helped DPW do some work up there, as well as doing some beautification, cleaning, and getting the Pappas Recreation Complex ready to go this year. So we are thrilled to have them. I think we had 3 teams of 4 to 5 employees each, and they spent probably 5 hours at each job location, and they were tremendous. They were great, just so personable, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to publicly thank them, publicly recognize again Ben Masterman's memory, and thank his family and his company for continuing that community involvement tradition. We are the beneficiaries of it. It's great.
The Mastermans have always come forward to the town of Auburn and helped us with many, many things, with tools, with labor, with just any support they can for the town, and we can't say thank you enough to them. And I'd like to see if there's any board members that have anything to say or make any comments.
Just echo your thanks.
Okay. Can we, at this point, send a letter of thanks to them and recognize Mr. Masterman for the service that his company now still continues to provide for us and all the improvements they made to the town. So I'd like to send a letter. And
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we send a letter, as you outlined just now, under your signature.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to send a letter. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. The next item, Mr. Chairman, is another grant opportunity. We have the opportunity to apply for the funds actually initiate with FEMA, and then they're passed through to the state MEMA office, and it is for the FY 2015 SHSP, which is State Homeland Security Program / Citizen Corp Program, which basically is to help CERT, our CERT team. And the dollar amount that we are eligible to apply for is $3,500. The equipment that we're proposing to purchase comes to $3,499.14. So we're looking for opportunity to do that. Basically, we would be purchasing 2 mobile radios. We have found with CERT is thankfully we've received a lot of grant funds from this program. It is competitive. We compete against other communities for it. We were fortunate to be able to get radios twice now for CERT members. So they used to use walkie-talkies, and now under emergency situations, we want to make sure that they're interoperable with police, fire, DPW, and one of the issues that CERT has run into is some of our buildings are so secure and so large that the radio frequency inside the building, it's hard to communicate outside. So we'd like to order 2 portable radios to keep at the Emergency Operations Center in the police department to have CERT's ability to use when they need to, and it will be connected to a portable generator as well. So if they're in the interior of a building, if we're in a situation where we're in the EOC or in the school or some, operating the shelter, that they still can have the interoperability with everybody else in town that's working. So that's what basically that is what the grant is for. A small portion of the grant would be used to purchase some vests for CERT members to make them easily identifiable and safety purposes so people can see them out in the street, and traffic wands as well.
Any comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the application for and acceptance of grant funds from the federal fiscal year 2015 US DHS/FEMA State Homeland Security Program Citizen Corp Program in the amount of $34.9914.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. And now we have a reminder on the Memorial Day Parade. Here is the American Legion Post has extended the invitation to the Board of Selectmen members to participate in the Memorial Day Parade to be held at 10 o'clock on May 30th, Monday. The parade will begin, as it usually does, in front of Dooley's Cleaners. And hopefully we have a nice day out and we get good attendance.
Through the chair, if I may, if any of the board members would like to participate in the ceremony that takes place at Hillside Cemetery, please let me know, and I'll be certain to let the veterans organizations know that, so they'll make sure that you're recognized and you're on the program.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have tabled items, discussion on developing board policy for board code of ethics and conduct. This was presented by me at our last meeting, and I think there was some misinterpretation of what this was supposed to be, but this was not to censor anybody from the public or to censor anybody from the Board of Selectmen and whatever comments, discussion, debate that there would be. This is more of a how to treat a individual member or members of a board during the meeting. And I know that in the past we've had several, heated debates and sometimes not quite the professional aspect we should have for the meeting. So this is why I put this on again, so we can discussion on developing a board policy. Not that we have a board policy in front of us. I didn't have any suggestions. It's just, do we want to have something like that for the board? And I'll leave it open for board members. Yeah, Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I get what this policy is, and it's specifically a policy for this 5-member board. Therefore, I would respectfully request that we hold this until we have a full complement of the board to get all members' input.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Carpenter?
I would just reiterate that I will not support this policy.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so we will table that until, we'll move it to our next meeting, which will be June, I can't. June 9th? I'm not sure exactly what it is.
It's the 6th?
That's the second Monday?
Has to be this. It's the second Monday.
Oh, the second one we said 8.
It's the 13th.
It's the 13th, okay, so we'll put that on for the agenda for the 13th. Okay. We have no Board of Selectmen member items. Is there any public comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just had one thing about the Memorial Day Parade. I just wanted to, I have a lot going on at home, so I won't be able to participate in this year's Memorial Day Parade, but certainly my heart and mind will be with the veterans who lost their lives and those who are still with us. I want to express my appreciation to them and my regret that I can't attend.
Thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else, is there anybody other public comment? All right. We have minutes from March 14th, 2016 in front of us. I know that Mr. Berthier was not with us at the time, but if there's any questions, comments, errors, omissions? If not, I'll accept them as presented. And on that note, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you and good night.